The Galactic Council headquarters floated like a jewel in the void, a massive structure of silver spires and gleaming energy shields, orbiting the neutral star system of Orvax 9. Inside, representatives from hundreds of alien worlds had gathered for what was supposed to be a historic summit. Today, Earth's ambassador, Dr. Elena Voss, would present her proposals for a new treaty, a treaty meant to ease tensions, prevent conflicts, and perhaps even bring humanity closer to the galaxy's most powerful nations. Dr. Elena Voss's shuttle cut through the Council's orbital defenses with practiced precision. She had traveled light years for this meeting, carrying nothing but her wits, her diplomatic credentials, and a carefully encoded message meant only for trusted ears. From the outside, her arrival seemed peaceful. The Council officers watched her approach on their vast holographic displays, the green light of their sensors scanning every inch of her vessel. They believed she posed no threat. After all, humans were fragile, predictable, weak. But as Elena's shuttle docked and the airlock hissed open, a silent signal passed between the Council's high officers. One subtle gesture, barely noticeable, and chaos was unleashed. Suddenly, alarms screamed through the Council chambers. Red lights flashed in impossible patterns, and warning sirens echoed across the vast halls. Elena barely had time to react before the first salvo of energy beams tore through her shuttle. Hull plates buckled. Sparks showered the cabin. Oxygen levels plummeted. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. Mayday, Mayday. This is Ambassador Elena Voss. We are under attack. Request immediate extraction, she broadcasted into the void. Outside her viewport, the Council's warships emerged, sleek and merciless. They glided in formation like predators circling a wounded animal. Their weapons locked on, their engines glinting against the dark backdrop of Orvax 9's star. Elena realized the truth. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate strike. Why would they attack? She whispered to herself, fingers tightening around the console. Panic fluttered at the edge of her mind, but she pushed it down. She had one mission now: survive. Send the message. Live. Inside the Council chambers, officers cheered, believing their target neutralized. The human envoy is finished, one proclaimed, his voice a mix of triumph and arrogance. Another added, no one can withstand the might of the Council's fleets. Earth will bow, or die. But outside, in the empty darkness of space, a signal flickered alive. A coded SOS sent across untraceable frequencies, reaching a destination the Council could never anticipate. Somewhere in human space, far beyond the Council's sensors, the message ignited a response. Machines hummed, engines roared to life, and deep within the heart of a hidden fleet, Admiral Kale read the incoming transmission. His eyes narrowed. They attacked her, he said simply. They will answer for this. Back on the shuttle, Elena felt the ship shudder under repeated blasts. Panels sparked. Warnings blared. The Council believed they had crushed her. They were wrong. The human spirit, and the secret of the Deathworlders, had only begun to stir. The void seemed to hold its breath. And then, in the distance, a fleet began to appear, silent, massive, and unstoppable. Shadows glimmered against the starlight. The Council had no idea what was coming. Elena whispered a single thought, almost a prayer, as she gripped her console. Someone, please, answer me. And far away, in a region of space they would never imagine, someone had heard. Light years away from the Galactic Council's prying eyes, deep in the shadowed reaches of human space, the Deathworlders' fleet drifted silently. These were no ordinary human ships. They were war machines built for survival in the harshest corners of the galaxy. Their engines hummed quietly, energy shields glinting faintly under distant starlight. Every officer on board knew their duty: protect humanity at any cost. The bridge of the flagship Oblivion's Wrath was calm but tense. Admiral Kale, tall and unyielding, stood before the main viewport, eyes scanning the surrounding darkness. His fingers tapped a rhythmless beat on the console as he reviewed fleet coordinates. Nothing unusual had appeared for days. And yet, something was about to change. Then, a tiny blip appeared on the sensor grid, so small that most fleets would have ignored it. But the Deathworlders were trained to notice. Kale leaned forward, squinting at the flickering signal. It was a human SOS, old-fashioned, encrypted, and desperate. The code was subtle, disguised as routine transmission. Only a trained human could recognize it. Kale's lips pressed into a thin line. "It's Elena Voss," he muttered. His voice carried the weight of command, and every officer on the bridge froze. The name of Earth's ambassador, the same one reported lost in Council space, was being transmitted across light years. Lieutenant Mara, the communications officer, confirmed the signal. "Sir, it's coming from the Council system. They're under attack." "She's still alive." The fleet seemed to shift as one entity, as if the ships themselves sensed the urgency. Engines flared to life. Shields hummed. Every crew member readied themselves. Kale's voice cut through the tension like steel. "Prepare for immediate jump. Plot an intercept course. The Council will regret this day." The officers moved with precision, almost mechanically, as the Oblivion's wrath and its accompanying fleet prepared for warp jump. Data streamed across the consoles, calculations flashing and recalculating faster than the eye could follow. Every maneuver was designed to maximize surprise. The Council would not see them coming until it was too late. Meanwhile, back at the Council, the galaxy's leaders celebrated, believing their triumph complete. Their communications showed no sign of a human fleet approaching. They assumed the SOS had been destroyed with the ambassador's shuttle. But in the void between stars, humans moved unseen. Ships as large as moons slipped through hidden channels, weaving through gravitational anomalies and nebulae. Their approach was silent. No Council sensor could detect them, not until the first ship emerged from the darkness, engines glowing with deadly intensity. Kale watched the fleet through the viewport, his eyes cold and calculating. "We answer their call, but we do not forgive," he said. The words were both a promise and a warning. Inside the ambassador's shuttle, Elena Voss had just enough time to catch a glimpse of the approaching human ships on her damaged sensors. Relief surged through her chest, mixed with disbelief. "It can't be. They actually came," she whispered. Sparks flew from the console as her ship shuddered under the last Council attack. The Deathworlders had arrived. The Council's arrogance would soon meet a force they had never imagined. Ships bristling with unknown weapons, far faster and deadlier than anything the Council had faced, began to converge on the occupied system. Every human ship moved with synchronized precision, as if the fleet itself were a single, living organism. On the bridge, Kale issued his first command for combat. "Target all Council destroyers. Avoid civilians. Disable. Do not annihilate. Yet." His officers glanced at him in surprise. Deathworlders were known for their ruthlessness, but Kale had a plan. Total destruction would come, but not before the Council realized the extent of their miscalculation. The void held its breath. And then, with a flash of light and a deep humming roar of engines, the Deathworlders leapt into the Council system. The first Council scout detected something, and then it was too late. A single human destroyer emerged from warp, weapons ready, shields glowing. Panic rippled through the Council fleets. Back on the ambassador's shuttle, Elena Voss felt a tremor of hope for the first time since the attack began. Somewhere, far above the Council's expectations, human power was rising to meet her call. And in that moment, she realized one terrifying truth: the galaxy had underestimated humanity. Inside the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, the air was thick with triumph. Alien delegates cheered and clapped, convinced their plan had succeeded without a single flaw. They believed the human envoy had been destroyed, her shuttle obliterated by the Council's overwhelming firepower. "The humans are weak," intoned Chancellor Vorik, a towering reptilian figure with scales that shimmered in the dim Council light. "Their envoy is gone. Earth will bow, or it will be forgotten." The Council officers toasted their victory, confident that the galaxy's most dangerous species had finally been humbled. Data streams on their consoles confirmed the ambassador's signal had ended. Confirmation, they thought, that the mission was complete. But far beyond the Council's reach, in the void between stars, the first signs of a storm appeared. A tiny blip on the outer sensors flickered, a human vessel, larger than any Council destroyer, entering their system without warning. The Council officers noticed the anomaly and laughed. "Another human ship?" one scoffed. "Surely it is a scout, easily destroyed." But the blip multiplied. What had been a single faint signal became a series of movements, all converging at impossible speeds. Council scanners struggled to keep up. Reports flooded in, warships appearing from nowhere, hulls bristling with weapons of a design no Council engineer had ever seen. Chancellor Vorik's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" he growled. "Where are they coming from?" On the bridge of the Deathworlders' flagship, Admiral Kale observed the Council's confusion through sensors. He allowed himself a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. Every calculation, every movement, had been anticipated. The Council believed themselves untouchable. That arrogance would be their undoing. "Target the outer defenses," Kale commanded. "Disable them first. Then we strike at the heart." The Deathworlders' fleet moved as one. Their ships slipped through blind spots in the Council's sensor grids, avoiding detection with unnatural precision. When the Council finally realized something was wrong, panic erupted. Alarms blared across the Council headquarters, shaking the chambers with their deafening wails. Inside the command room, Council officers shouted over the chaos, attempting to coordinate their fleets. "Focus fire on the incoming vessels," one yelled. Another screamed, "They are faster, far faster than our calculations." But the Deathworlders did not falter. One by one, Council destroyers were disabled, their shields collapsing under targeted energy beams. The Council had underestimated the human fleet, and now their overconfidence was being punished. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Council complex, Chancellor Vorik's face darkened. He realized that the humans, the so-called fragile species, were nothing like he had imagined. Their ships were not only technologically advanced, but their tactics were precise and unpredictable. "Alert the remaining fleets," he ordered, his voice tight with fear. "Destroy. Destroy them all." Too late. The Deathworlders anticipated every move. Energy blasts struck Council cruisers before they could even respond. Ships collided, exploded, and tumbled helplessly through orbit. Panic spread among the delegates, who now scrambled to save themselves. In the chaos, Elena Voss watched from her shuttle, barely holding together, as the human fleet tore through the Council's forces. Relief washed over her, but it was mixed with awe. Humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was exacting revenge with terrifying efficiency. The Council had celebrated victory, confident in their power and superiority. But they had overlooked a simple truth: humans do not yield easily, and the Deathworlders never forget a call for help. Alarms echoed through the Council halls, mingled with the sounds of distant explosions. Officers stumbled, delegates screamed, and the once proud chamber became a scene of chaos and disbelief. Outside, the human fleet closed in on the Council's command hub. It was only a matter of time before the Council realized that their arrogance had sealed their fate. Admiral Kale's voice cut through the bridge of the Oblivion's wrath, calm but deadly. "They celebrated too soon. Let them taste fear. They have never known it before." Far below, in the Council chamber, Chancellor Vorik stared at the approaching fleet on the main screens. His confidence had vanished. All that remained was a creeping, suffocating dread. The galaxy had learned its first lesson: underestimate humans at your own peril. The void above the Council system was alive with motion. Human warships, the Deathworlders, moved like shadows given form, silent, deadly, and unstoppable. Every weapon gleamed with lethal precision. Every maneuver had been calculated in advance. The Council's fleets, once proud and confident, now scrambled in disarray, unprepared for what was coming. From the flagship Oblivion's wrath, Admiral Kale observed the battlefield with icy focus. His eyes scanned sensor feeds, mapping Council movements in real time. "Open fire on all destroyers," he commanded, voice steady. "Let them understand what happens when humans answer the call for help." The Deathworlders struck first, and the effect was devastating. Council cruisers, massive and heavily armed, were disabled almost instantly. Energy beams sliced through their shields, crippling engines and tearing hulls apart. Explosions lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks, scattering debris across orbit. The council officers, once smug and arrogant, now shouted in terror as their ships went down one by one. In the council command chamber, alarms screamed and holographic consoles flashed red. "Shields are failing," an officer yelled. "How is this possible? They shouldn't be able to move this fast." The council fleets were outmatched in every way. The Deathworlders' ships moved with uncanny speed, anticipating every attack before it even began. Their weapons were deadly precise, and unlike anything the council had ever seen. Laser grids cut through the vacuum of space, disabling the council's defenses without mercy. Admiral Kale watched as the council's flagship, a towering vessel of silver and gold, attempted to escape. "Intercept," he ordered. "No one leaves until we finish this." Within moments, smaller human strike teams dropped from stealth corridors, boarding council vessels with terrifying efficiency. Council soldiers fought back, but the Deathworlders were relentless. Each strike was calculated to subdue, to instill fear, to make them understand the consequences of attacking humans. Back on the ambassador's shuttle, Elena Voss watched through her damaged viewport as the battle unfolded. Her heart pounded. Sparks flew inside the shuttle as council energy beams occasionally struck near her position. She felt a mixture of fear and awe. Humanity, the secret humans had kept hidden for centuries, was finally showing its true face. Explosions rocked the council system as one by one, their ships fell into the void. Panic spread among council delegates. Officers screamed orders that were impossible to follow. "Reinforce the outer perimeter," one cried. "Target the enemy," another yelled. But the Deathworlders were always 3 steps ahead. Even the Council's most advanced battle computers struggled to keep up. Predictive algorithms failed as the human fleet exploited weaknesses no one had anticipated. Tactics that had never been seen in the galaxy before left Council officers scrambling. Their confidence evaporated, replaced with fear. Admiral Kale's voice cut across the fleet comms, calm yet commanding. "Remember, precision, not destruction. We answer calls, we enforce justice. The Council will learn the cost of arrogance." The Oblivion's wrath led the charge, its massive weapons tearing through Council cruisers like paper. Smaller human vessels followed, coordinating attacks seamlessly. Council soldiers fled to escape pods, but even many of those were intercepted. The Deathworlders were methodical, systematic, and merciless in execution, but measured. In orbit above the Council capital, a final Council destroyer attempted a desperate assault on the Deathworlders' flagship. It fired volleys of energy beams, but every attack was intercepted, countered, and nullified. The destroyer shattered under the relentless assault, leaving only fragments drifting silently in the void. On Elena's shuttle, the ambassador whispered to herself, barely audible over the alarm sounds, "So, this is what humans can do." Her eyes widened in shock and admiration. The Council had expected submission, weakness, but instead, humanity answered with unstoppable fury. The chaos spread across the system. Council ships tried to regroup, to mount some semblance of defense, but the Deathworlders' tactics were too advanced, too fast, and too coordinated. Every movement was anticipated, every escape route blocked. The first phase of the battle was over. The Council's pride lay in ruins, scattered across orbit like debris from a storm. One fact became clear: the Deathworlders had come for vengeance, and the Council would never recover from this day. Admiral Kale surveyed the battlefield with satisfaction. "Let them understand," he said. "This is the cost of underestimating humanity." And in the silence that followed the chaos, Elena realized something profound: the galaxy had changed forever. Humans were no longer the hunted. They were the hunters. The wreckage of Dr. Elena Voss's shuttle floated silently among the debris of the shattered Council fleet. Smoke and sparks drifted in the void, illuminated by distant explosions as the Deathworlders continued their relentless assault. For a moment, it seemed all hope was lost. Her shuttle, her only lifeline, was barely functional, its hull cracked, systems failing, and oxygen levels dropping fast. Elena's hands shook as she worked to stabilize the craft. She tapped frantically at the control panel, sending out a final beacon, a desperate signal to any nearby humans. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the comms. "Please, someone answer." A shadow passed across her viewport. She froze, heart racing, unsure whether it was another council attack or something else. Then, a massive human boarding craft appeared, gliding silently through the wreckage. Its hull was dark and angular, a stark contrast to the council's sleek silver ships. It hovered near her shuttle, shielded from council scanners. "Hold on, Ambassador." A calm, authoritative voice came over the comm. "We have you." Elena exhaled in disbelief. Could it really be humans, alive, coming for her? She could hardly believe what she was seeing as a team of Deathworlder soldiers boarded her shuttle with expert precision. Their armor was black, sleek, and designed for both space and combat. They moved with quiet efficiency, extinguishing fires, sealing breaches, and bringing her shuttle under control. As the team worked, Elena stared at the fleet surrounding the council system. Massive warships, bristling with weapons, moved in perfect formation. Some were cloaked, emerging from the shadows to strike council cruisers. Others fired precision beams that tore through shields without warning. The Deathworlders' fleet was not just powerful, it was unstoppable. A boarding officer approached Elena, offering her a hand. "Ambassador Voss, you're safe now. Follow me." She nodded, too stunned to speak, and allowed herself to be led onto the larger ship. Inside, the scale of human power became clear. Hundreds of crew members worked with silent efficiency, coordinating attacks, monitoring council movements, and preparing for the next phase of battle. Holographic screens displayed real-time maps of the council system, showing every council ship and their positions. Admiral Kale appeared on a viewing platform above the bridge, his presence commanding attention. His eyes, cold and calculating, met Elena's. "You are safe," he said simply. "But this is only the beginning. The Council thought they could destroy you, that humanity would remain passive. They were wrong." Elena's mind raced. She realized that humanity was not merely defending itself, they were delivering justice, precise and terrifying. This was not random revenge, it was a strategic, disciplined response that the Council could never have anticipated. From her vantage point, she watched as the Deathworlders struck again. A Council flagship attempted a desperate maneuver to escape, but Deathworlder destroyers intercepted it, cutting off its path. Explosions lit the void, Council officers screamed over comms, and panic spread like wildfire. Elena felt a mix of fear, awe, and relief. Why are humans like this?" she whispered to one of the boarding officers, a young soldier with piercing eyes. The soldier's voice was calm, almost cold. "Because we answer calls. But when we do, the galaxy learns not to make the same mistake twice." Elena realized that her survival was more than luck, it was part of a larger plan. The Deathworlders had anticipated the Council's arrogance, had prepared for their attacks, and had orchestrated a response that no one, not even the Council, could match. As the shuttle docked safely with the Oblivion's wrath, Elena finally allowed herself a moment of relief. The human fleet continued its advance, but she knew she would now witness the true power of humanity. A species underestimated, dismissed, and feared, but one that could rise as the galaxy's deadliest force when provoked. She turned her gaze to the viewport again, seeing Council ships falling one by one, officers fleeing, chaos consuming the once proud system. Her heart pounded in her chest. For the first time, she understood the full scope of what humanity could achieve when united and determined. Admiral Kale stepped beside her, his expression unreadable. The Council believed they were untouchable. They were wrong. "And now, Ambassador, you will see the galaxy change forever." Elena nodded slowly, a mix of fear and awe in her eyes. She had survived. But more than that, she had witnessed the awakening of a force the galaxy could never ignore. And in that moment, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Deathworlders were not just defenders. They were the harbingers of humanity's unstoppable fury. The Galactic Council's remnants were scattered across orbit, their once mighty fleet reduced to a trembling handful of ships. Panic had replaced confidence, and fear now ruled the chambers of the Council's command. Officers barked orders at trembling subordinates, but their tactics were disorganized, desperate, and predictable. Chancellor Vorik slammed his clawed hands onto the control console. Form up. Attack in coordinated volleys. Target the enemy's flagship. His voice trembled, betraying the growing realization that the humans were unlike anything they had faced before. But the Deathworlders anticipated every move. Sensors tracked the Council's every attempt to regroup, every calculated maneuver, and every flailing counterattack. Their ships moved like shadows in perfect synchronization, intercepting Council vessels before they could fire a single shot. "Prepare countermeasures," Vorik ordered, voice rising with desperation. "Their shields cannot withstand everything." A fleet of Council destroyers surged toward the human formation, firing volleys of energy blasts in a coordinated effort. For a moment, it seemed they might gain some advantage, just a flicker of hope. But the Deathworlders responded instantly. Energy shields shimmered and absorbed the attacks. Retaliatory beams sliced through the Council vessels with surgical precision. One by one, the Council destroyers lost shields, engines, and life support systems. Explosions sent shards of metal spinning into the void. On the Oblivion's Wrath, Admiral Kale watched the counterattack with calm, icy precision. Target the lead destroyers first. Disable them, then contain the rest. Do not allow a single ship to escape. The Deathworlders' fleet executed maneuvers the Council could not comprehend. Ships twisted in ways that defied conventional physics, dodging attacks, striking vulnerable points, and neutralizing threats before the Council officers could react. Every move was methodical, every strike calculated. Meanwhile, Elena Voss, observing from her shuttle, could barely comprehend the scale of the battle. She saw Council fleets scatter, ships exploding in brilliant flashes of light, and officers running frantically to maintain control. She realized the humans' advantage was not just technology, it was strategy, discipline, and an understanding of fear itself. In the Council chambers, chaos reigned. Officers screamed over malfunctioning communications, each one blaming the other for the failures. "Their movements, we cannot anticipate them," one cried. "Every attack is countered before it even begins." Chancellor Vorik's voice rose to a roar. "We are the Council. We are invincible. Fight back. Fight back or die trying." But his commands fell on deaf ears. The Council's remaining fleets were systematically cornered, trapped, and destroyed. Attempted retreats were blocked by invisible corridors of fire and energy, orchestrated by the Deathworlders with surgical precision. Council ships that tried to escape into distant sectors were intercepted mid-jump, cut off, and obliterated. "Focus on containment," Admiral Kale instructed. "Do not destroy until we force their surrender. Let them see the consequences of arrogance." Council officers began to realize that their power had collapsed entirely. They had once ruled the galaxy with fear and manipulation, but now they were hunted, outmatched, and overpowered. No technology, no strategy, and no cunning could save them from the human onslaught. Even the Council's AI networks, designed to calculate every possible outcome in battle, failed to anticipate the Deathworlders' actions. They tried to adjust, recalculating in real time, but the human fleet's tactics were unlike anything they had ever encountered. The AI hesitated, stuttered, and finally shut down under the strain of impossible variables. Admiral Kale observed the final Council ships falling into disarray, then turned to Elena. "This is what happens when humans answer the call for help," he said. His voice was calm, but there was a warning in it. They believed themselves untouchable. They were wrong. And now they will learn. Elena felt a mix of awe and fear. Humanity was not simply fighting, they were reshaping the rules of engagement entirely. Every failed counterattack by the Council only proved one thing. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and the consequences of that mistake were deadly. Council survivors fled into the remnants of their system, desperately trying to regroup, but every escape route was blocked. Their hope had evaporated. The Deathworlders had not just defended, they had taken control, demonstrating a level of power that would send shockwaves throughout the galaxy for generations. And in the silence that followed, only one thought lingered in the minds of the council officers who survived: Earth had called. And when humans answered, nothing, no empire, no council, no fleet, would ever be safe again. The Galactic Council's command hub loomed like a fortress in orbit, massive and imposing, its energy shields pulsing with raw power. For centuries, it had been untouchable, a symbol of their dominance over the galaxy. But now, it was the final target of humanity's wrath. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of the Oblivion's wrath, eyes fixed on the Council's stronghold. His fleet had dismantled their outer defenses, crippled their warships, and scattered their forces. Only one obstacle remained: the heart of the Council's power. "Prepare the boarding teams," Kale commanded, his voice calm but unwavering. "Target the command hub. Precision strikes only. Let them feel the consequences of their arrogance." On the bridge of the Council command hub, Chancellor Vorik and his officers watched the approaching human fleet, disbelief and terror etched into their faces. "Impossible. They shouldn't have survived," Vorik muttered. His voice trembled as alarms blared around him. "All units, reinforce the shields. Do whatever it takes." But it was too late. The Deathworlders' fleet had anticipated every defensive maneuver. Human destroyers cut through the outer shields with surgical precision, leaving gaps for the boarding teams to enter undetected. Cloaked ships slipped silently through the void, their engines leaving no trace. Inside the command hub, panic erupted. Officers scrambled to send warnings, to regroup defenses, to escape, but the Deathworlders were already inside. Airlocks were breached, corridors sealed, and boarding parties advanced with calculated speed. Council guards fought valiantly, but they were no match for the humans' disciplined coordination and superior weaponry. Elena Voss, observing from her vantage point, could hardly comprehend the scale of the assault. She watched as human forces systematically disabled security systems, neutralized Council soldiers, and seized control of critical areas. Every action was methodical, leaving no room for error or escape. Admiral Kale's voice came over the comms to the Council leaders, calm yet deadly. "Chancellor Vorik, this is your warning. Humanity does not forgive attacks on its own. Surrender now, or witness the consequences." Vorik's face twisted in fury and disbelief. We cannot surrender to humans," he shouted, his scales paling under stress. "We are the Council. We are eternal." Kale's eyes narrowed. Eternal? No empire lasts forever. Not when it underestimates those it claims to dominate. In orbit, the final Council warships made a desperate charge toward the Deathworlders' fleet. Energy beams crisscrossed space, shields flaring, engines straining. But every move was anticipated. Ships were intercepted, disabled, and destroyed one by one. The Council's pride, once invincible, shattered in moments of chaos. Boarding parties reached the central chamber of the command hub. Council officers fell back, attempting to mount a final defense, but the humans advanced without hesitation. Their weapons were precise, their movements flawless, and their resolve absolute. Every officer who resisted was quickly neutralized, their screams echoing through the corridors as a warning to the others. Elena felt a shiver run down her spine. The humans were not just powerful, they were deliberate. Every strike was meant to send a message: attack Earth, and the cost will be absolute. At last, the Deathworlders reached the Council's leadership chamber. Vorik stood, trembling, facing the boarding team led by Kale himself. "You cannot," he stammered. Kale's voice was cold, controlled, and final. "The galaxy will remember today. You chose arrogance. You chose cruelty. And now, you face the consequences." The Council leaders fell silent, realizing in that moment that their empire had crumbled, not through luck or chance, but through calculated human vengeance. Every officer, every soldier, every fleet, obliterated or captured. The command hub, once a symbol of untouchable power, now lay under human control. Elena Voss stepped forward cautiously. She had survived, but she had also witnessed humanity's full might. The humans were not just defenders, they were enforcers, a force capable of reshaping the galaxy with precision, intelligence, and merciless determination. Kale looked at her, his eyes unyielding. "This is what happens when humans answer a call for help," he said. "The Council will not forget it. The galaxy will not forget it." In the corridors of the command hub, the Council officers who survived the boarding realized a terrifying truth. They had been outmatched, outsmarted, and utterly defeated. Humanity had struck at the heart of their power, leaving no doubt of who now controlled the outcome. And in the void of space, beyond the debris of the shattered fleets, a single lesson echoed across the stars: never attack Earth, and never underestimate the Deathworlders. Silence settled over the shattered remains of the Galactic Council system. Once proud warships lay in ruins, their hulls cracked and smoking, drifting silently in the cold void. The Council's power, so long feared across countless star systems, had been broken in a single, decisive strike. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of the Oblivion's Wrath, surveying the aftermath. His fleet remained on high alert, weapons ready, sensors scanning for any remaining threats. Though the battle was over, the message had to be clear: humanity had arrived, and no empire would ever underestimate it again. Elena Voss, now safely aboard the flagship, watched the scene unfold from the observation deck. She had survived, but she had also witnessed the full extent of humanity's might. The Deathworlders were not just warriors, they were a force capable of enforcing justice, protecting their own, and reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy. Kale turned to her, his expression unreadable but firm. This council believed they could crush Earth. They were arrogant. They assumed weakness. And they learned the cost of their mistake. In the Council's remnants, surviving officers scrambled to send messages, pleading for mercy, bargaining for survival. But the Deathworlders allowed no negotiation, not because they were cruel, but because some lessons must be absolute. Their actions were precise, leaving no ambiguity. Humanity answers calls for help, and those who attack humans will face consequences beyond imagining. Elena felt a shiver of awe and fear. The galaxy had changed forever. Humans were no longer the hunted, no longer the passive observers in interstellar politics. They had arrived as a force that could not be ignored, a species both cunning and unstoppable when provoked. On the bridge, Kale activated the main communications array. Across the system, a broadcast went out, calm, firm, and terrifying in its simplicity. To all corners of the galaxy, Earth does not beg for mercy. Humanity protects its own. The Galactic Council has learned this lesson. Let it serve as a warning to all who consider attacking us. This is your first and last warning. The message reverberated across the void, reaching star systems far beyond the Council's territory. Aliens who had once viewed humans as insignificant now understood the truth. The species they had underestimated was no longer meek or weak. The galaxy had a new player, and it was formidable. Elena stepped back, watching as the Deathworlders organized the captured council ships, ensuring no further threat remained. She realized that this moment was more than survival. It was a turning point. Humanity had answered a call for help, not just with defense, but with decisive, overwhelming force. Kale turned back to her, voice low but resolute. "We answered their call, and the galaxy will never forget it. Humans do not forgive easily, but we do enforce justice. Let them know that." The ambassador nodded slowly. She understood now that Earth's secret was no longer hidden. Humanity had revealed itself, not with words, but with action. The galaxy had learned one universal truth: when humans answer a call for help, the consequences are absolute and undeniable. Above the shattered council fleets, the Deathworlders' ships glimmered against the stars, silent sentinels of a new era. Their message was clear: Earth protects its own, and no one, not council, not empire, not warlord, would ever threaten humanity without paying the ultimate price. And somewhere in the distance, across the dark stretches of space, the surviving council officers whispered their last words of defiance, knowing too late that their arrogance had sealed their fate. The galaxy had shifted. Power had a new name: humanity. As the fleet prepared to return home, The final words echoed across the void, carried in the minds of all who witnessed it. Never call for help, unless humans answer. The galaxy would never be the same.